Great. Everyone's here.
Hello.
Happy Friday, everyone,
Happy Friday.
wherever you are.
And the ones in the States also have like a long weekend, right?
Is there? I don't know.
No?
No.
The American, okay,
What are you thinking of?
because I work at EY, the United States team have the whole week off. Like next week, they don't work. So I
Oh,
it was like,
that's
hey.
it's 4th of July, so they must be very generous with their 4th of July time, or maybe people are just taking extra time off. But the 4th of July is next Friday. So that's our independence celebration.
So next weekend will be a long one for you.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's the 1st of July in Canada on Tuesday. So our holiday is right in the middle of the week.
All snap. Sure, there you go.
That's nice too. Actually, I think I prefer that over having a long weekend because, it's just 2 days of work, one rest, 2 days of work, and
Yeah.
then the weekend.
I get half a weekend this week.
Yeah, put it in
Yeah.
the middle. Take Wednesday off every week. Nice. All right. So this is awesome. I think this is like the fourth or fifth office hours side projects edition. And it's starting to work because everyone who's going to present a side project is actually here right now. The other ones, people are like, "Oh, I can't make it. Sorry, my foot got stuck in the door. Can't get to the computer."
I'm not gonna front. I almost decided to say, you know what? I just overslept. You know what I'm saying? Like I ain't got no excuse.
No, you're doing this. You're doing this. It's gonna happen. Okay. I think I had an order, but maybe since everyone's here, it doesn't necessarily matter. So Isabella, Jordan, and Julia. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, it's Shula, like shoe.
Shula.
It's
Shula. Oh,
okay.
it's even better. No, it's not. You get it right. Get it right. Shula. That's 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 very cool. I like that. So let's see, Shula, why don't you go first? Since
Okay.
I've been going back and forth so much.
Yeah, I had trouble trying
Me-
to sign up.
Yeah, but it was my problem. It was things were broken on my end.
There was something broken there, yeah, but you fix it, so it's all good now.
Oh my gosh. Half a day with debugging things. But now it works. So Shula, if you're okay, do you wanna start?
Yeah, yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
There. Share my screen before. Okay, so before I really jump into it, so I talked to Julian because I'm from Argentina. I'm an industrial designer, and I come in touch with future designs, future design, and future thinking and speculative design, because I teach at a university here, and we came across Dion Rabe book. So I got really attracted to this part of the discipline. So I didn't know anything before that. So when I then like investigating in the internet, I found Oyo School, and then Oyo, not Oyo School, Oyo Studio Design. And they have this summer school in Italy that I said, well, why not? Let's try. Like this is like a good excuse to jump into it and maybe start thinking about a project with this, like, yeah, this excuse or instructions that they had for they have this golden ticket, which is a contest for a free spot. So I tried. Spoiler, I didn't win, but I really enjoyed like doing this. It was like a rush, like 4 days working almost non-stop on this. But of course, I didn't get any feedback. So even though I still think I learned a lot, I don't have anyone to really ask and say, hey, what do you think of this? Or am I going into the right track? So yeah, now I'm here trying to do that. Okay, so what to win the summer school golden ticket, they said, okay, send us an apple. And I'm an industrial designer. I have a strong background in furniture, so that's where my mom first went. So I decided to take their prompt literally and design this fictional product called the Apple Puff, because like apples kind of have this morphology similar to the Y2K beanbags. So okay, maybe this Apple Puff is a piece of furniture and it's developed by this fictional company called Cultigen, and they have this design studio called Comfort Studies. And the idea really came from thinking about how self-expression, aesthetics, trends, and this all greenwashing and how lifestyle are marketed today, and what would happen if those aspects were really taken to the extreme by these companies. So what if individualism kind of becomes the primary consumer product? What if the latest trend is to stop following trends? And what would happen when companies start selling like this rebellion as a product to the people? So when I created this scenario, I based it on some questions I asked myself, like what will the critique be? And I thought that, okay, maybe the tension between individual comfort and collective waste felt relevant. Especially in this future culture where being unique has become like a packaged feature, and where planting a seed could be could be expected to balance out mass production. You will learn why I said this when I show you the rest of the other question was, how can the apple go to its full morphology? Well, I imagine like this soft apple-shaped sofa that the users will start tearing it apart until it feels comfortable enough and unique only for them and their bodies. Why would the public want this piece of furniture? Because in this fictional post-mass trans society, like they realize that they are all inevitably the same, so they kind of long for individuality, and they want something that they can imprint their personality on, something to bring out this uniqueness that each of us has. And who will be selling this product? Well, that would be Cultigen. Cultigen is like the scientific name for the most common apple that we have here in Argentina. That's where it comes from. And this will be like the company that will be taking advantage of this new trend and will be promote like trying to find yourself through consumption and hyper-personalization of artifacts, jumping on the eco-washing train by justifying all of the trash the Apple Puff leaves behind by promising a tree if the user plants one specific chunk of the puff which contains a seed. So I delivered the project through a catalog which presents the company, its vision, why they developed this new piece of furniture. They call it, Cultigen call it fruiture, not furniture, and why they think that people need it in their houses. They will also, I also included an instructive on how to use it. And also at the end, will have a satirical toned, limited warranties, conditions, and services section. So let me show you that catalog. So this is what this will be sell, not sell, like this is what the users will receive. Well, how they will make the product kind of famous. So this is what the Oyo school received from me. Okay. So we will have this, like the presentation of the company, trying to tell the users, yeah, hey, we know how you feel. You should stop. We all are tired of trends, and we all tired of feeling the same, and no one feels like they are who they really need to are anymore. So this is where the Apple Puff comes on. So they show you how it comes to your house. how it can end up looking like. And then they have this piece which has the sticker, and that's where the user is supposed to plant in order to grow a tree out of it. So yeah, well, we have the instructions, then we have the user that, hey, I'm so me, but at the same time they look like they are dead inside, because that's not what really makes you happy, I think. And you can see also that, okay, they have the apple puff in their living room, but they also have like all of this trash in the background, and the tree that may grow if you plant that specific chunk. And this is, I think, where the, like in the catalog, in the limited warranties and conditions and the services section, this is where I think that the satirical part comes. And, you know, like, the company doesn't guarantee that you will be feeling satisfied, or that you will feel yourself, or you will stop self-doubting because of like of the experience that making the apple your only, like, the apple exactly for the needs that you needed, for the needs that you have, you know, that may not be the solution to all of your problems. And then they have the services that is like, okay, after you have the product, this is what we offer: identity coaching, uniqueness renewal sessions, in case you start to feel like you're losing yourself, or you see the apple puff from your neighbor and it looks exactly like yours, and hey, I've been betrayed. Well, and so on. And well, yes, this is the last page of the catalog. So yeah, I mean, this is my first attempt at thinking about what will happen if some of our current habits and of consumption, but also habits of how they sell us these kind of things, and what are we doing with how we relate to each other, and what with the things that we have, we're taking to the extreme. So yeah, that's all from my side, I think.
Awesome. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so this is where we give Julia 20 minutes of our thoughts and reflections.
What type of feedback would you like, Julia?
I don't know if feedback might, but maybe trying to understand if, like, yeah, this is how am I supposed to be thinking about this stuff? Is this like, maybe this is too close, this is not future enough, or maybe this is not as critical as I thought it was, you know, like, how would you approach something like this?
Yeah, well, maybe one response to those is there. Well, I don't know. Is there a supposed, like, is there a way that you're supposed to do it? Um, I'm not entirely sure, but I get why you're asking that because of some conversations you and I've had. I think that you do you lead with your instinct, and that instinct kind of refines over time, and you get your own feedback about what is working for you. You know what where you're trying to take your thinking. I mean, the hard part about this kind of work is that you're trying to translate something that you're imagining and mostly feeling and wondering about, and maybe getting excited about, into some other kind of container. So you chose the the catalog, and you also had a very typical OIO kind of like brief, which is like, send us an apple. It's like, come on, guys,
Yeah.
a little help over here. So you really set yourself up for quite a bit of a good creative challenge. It sounds like you went deep for, what was it, like 3 days or whatever of pondering this. Um, so I think you should be uh very, very pleased with yourself in terms of even approaching it and going after it, with that, especially that brief, like send us an apple, like, I'm not sure what was going on with that. I kind of get it. It's just like that obscure, little thing, and maybe just a little bit over clever and Italian. um, so I think you did great.
I
Oh,
think it's
thank
I think it's fun. I've got a thought. I got a thought around this, and I think that you like you asked the question like what's it supposed to do versus, and then the other question was like how would you approach it? And I like that because I think a lot of this is it's very subjective, and I like to approach things in a couple of different ways. One, I have a background in advertising, so my bias is know your audience and what do you want to communicate to them. Like be purposeful with your intention. What are you projecting onto them? That doesn't have to be a certain idea, but it could just be like provocation. I want to provoke you somehow. But I look at the advertising aspect of know your audience and know who you're doing it for, and especially if you're doing it for like an art festival or a show or something, and the work that I do, it's like I always research like who's curating it, and you make it for them because you don't get in the show unless they like it. And that's your audience, is that person. So that's one way of looking at it, is kind of apply a bit of strategic thinking. And then the other thing too, more directed strategic thinking, and I think it helps you with your chances of putting your art out there. Otherwise, if you aren't as focused, you risk just creating really nice art that doesn't land well with any one person. It might only land a little bit with a lot of people, which might not be enough for what you need for, if it's a like grant or money or a living you want to make off of doing this. The other thing is the how would you approach it? Well, that's the subjective thing, and especially here in the Near Future Lab, with it being design fiction and seeing some of the things that you're doing is projecting into the future and what things might you do. And I just think of like I wasn't did you focus on the sticker that's on the apple? What does that sticker say specifically?
this sticker is like it doesn't say anything more than the brand, like Coldigen Comfort Studies. But in the catalog, the instruction is, hey, look out for the chunk that has the sticker, because there's a
Mhm.
seed. And if you plant it, you will grow this tree. And that will wash up all of the other trash that you're like throwing away by
Mhm.
tearing the sofa apart to make it your own. That's
So
what.
one, okay, yeah, and that's good. I think you're building the story in there. You're connecting your elements. Like one way I would personally approach it is I would make the sticker work harder, because
Mm,
the sticker can be easily dismissed as like, oh, it just looks like your standard barcode sticker that you might find in a grocery store. But if you add something else, just like a warning, a label, a thing, an instruction, a copyright notice, by taking a bite you accept to our terms and conditions, like something weird, something strange that is familiar enough in another context but seems strange give in this context. Like that's the type of thing that you want to provoke a question at the high level, because right now it requires you to read the larger book in order to get that story. But if you can hint to it more at a superficial level, then you're dropping a breadcrumb. You're letting them know that this is a place that you want to go. So that's personally how I would approach it, in the design fiction context. And your design fiction is that sticker on the apple is a wonderful design fiction artifact.
cool. That's super interesting. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, dropping the hint from the beginning, and maybe that's what, like, I don't think it. Maybe it's not like uncanny valley, but it kinds of, hey, this is a sticker, but it's something else. It's not. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just adding
Yeah,
to what.
take.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
no, just saying similar to what Dre is like. I put a reference to. I don't know if you are familiar with this book, Strangely Familiar: Design in Everyday Life. It's from 2001, maybe. And there's some projects in there that they're kind of one-liners, but they're because they're playing a critique. Some, they're not. I think that the message you're trying to express isn't as clear as it could be. So like Dre's saying, the sticker, if the for a while, the puff could seem like a legitimate offering from somebody until you notice that, like you said, once you take a bite, then blah, 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 blah. And just, it's a matter of editing the pieces you have to, because I think you have the pieces to more, specifically make the commentary that you want to. So.
Good. Yeah, I have it. I mean, I had to learn how to use Blender in I don't know, 48 hours. So if I don't have those files in my computer for some reason, I don't know what I will do. Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Uh, yeah, also the way they mentioned, you have a sticker, you should like make it work more. Um, like every part of or every component of the thing that you have right now is a, a thing that you can leverage to use in your favor for design and the world that you're building up. Um, so also, for example, I
Yeah,
collect stickers, if you may have seen. Uh, so yeah, I am like I love having analog media, and I keep peeling off these stickers. So like there's a certain joy to it. There's if I look at it from a uh, graphic design or just design perspective, it's just so fascinating and usually something so easily ignored. Maybe that in itself could be a commentary. Something, yes, stuff like that.
thank you, Anushka.
Yeah, Anushka, you broke up a little bit there, but I think the last point you made was yeah, I guess I'm just echoing it, is that um maybe you don't, maybe if you invert it, so rather than focusing on the apple in, in context and the the kind of complexity of like the eating and the kind of refuse, but just have the sticker that would go on the apple, and that maybe that was just the thing. Or even if you did a whole pack of just the stickers, that's like, wait, what's going on here? And then someone has to invest a lot of their kind of imagination to try to wonder about what is this thing, and where does it come from. I think one of the things that this is like one of your first projects, um, is trying to find, you're trying to build the world, right? So there's a lot of text around describing it in these different ways, whether it's in the catalog or in your preamble, and trying the opposite. So like show, like they say in film, like show it, don't tell it, or whatever. Like don't have a lot of didactic kind of anchorage that is just trying to explain, wait, what's this person doing? And the person says like, I'm a cop, I'm chasing after this bad guy. Like they don't do that. He's running. You see him with one guy running, and he's got a bag over his, over his shoulder that's got a dollar sign on it. And then you cut, and all of a sudden you see the cop running. Stop, stop, stop. So how can you do that so that you don't have to explain a lot? So someone's just like, oh wait, what's going on here? They immediately come to it with a sense of wonder and kind of curiosity.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Scott, what was that book you mentioned?
I don't know. Who published this? It's from the Walker Art Center. It's called Strangely Familiar Design in Everyday Life. Ah, there we go. Thanks, Mark.
What year is that? I guess I could.
It was an exhibit, 2003, published around then. Yeah, it was a traveling thing that started at the Walker. I don't see the copyright of the.
It's only $13 in Amazon. Hardcover and everything.
It's a super nice book.
Yeah, it looks nice.
I mean, it's interesting to look at the projects and see how they've held up over time, but
Get to the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. Make sure you go check out the James Turrell that everybody misses. Like, it's totally not obvious, but there's a great Turrell that's right outside in the sculpture garden, and it's a must.
Anyone else have any thoughts or feedback?
I mean, well, one thing that is interesting in that what's come up, I guess, is, and Shula, if you're working on an idea, right? Like if this is really about the idea more than the object, right? Which is kind of what people are hinting at. What's nice about what the kind of conversation has happened is that it's bringing up the idea that that idea actually doesn't live in the object. It lives in the mind of the person who's coming across what you're doing. And so you can work a little bit harder at kind of leaving that mystery and working on the idea. And the fact that that idea is something that emerges in this space between the object and the person who's viewing it. And so from even the stuff that Dre was talking about is, I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting. So to my question, there's how big, in terms of your idea, how big is this notion of kind of like the offset? Which is something that you're kind of talking about, right? Like there's this hidden narrative of you buy something and then you've got the garbage in the background and you've got the tree, and there's some kind of narrative of like an offset that I think is worth exploring as well. Or maybe figuring out. I don't know if other people agree with that, but that's kind of what that's what I'm seeing in it. I'm seeing like a hint at a notion of offset at a personal level, which I think is interesting as well.
Yes, I mean, I sort of it like as layers, and but what I'm English is not my first language, of course, as you can tell. But what do you mean when you say offset? I know that it's like this is offset, for example, when something is like
okay. Yeah, so you think about it like the industrial scale of like carbon offsets, right? Like I'm going to pay some money because I'm doing something bad for the environment, and that somehow is like balancing out. And there's this idea that you've like bought an object, but there's this kind of hidden narrative in behind of the garbage as well, but you're also planting a tree. And so something's coming in, but something's growing. You're putting a stress on the environment, but then you're giving back to it. And so I'm noticing like, I just don't know for you how big a part of this idea, that kind of idea is.
Yeah, it was a part because that was the what I wanted to make of, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got to. Yeah, no, my first.
I don't know if that was for me. Okay. No, but yeah, what you were saying, yeah, that was like the main idea because that's what I was trying to critique. And also this big part of how we are dealing right now with aesthetics and trends of what we want to be, but how much room we have to be ourselves, and because we live in this world and it's all about capitalism and consumption and yada yada. So it's like, okay, what happens when like finding ourselves is as well through this consumption, and when the companies take advantage of this. So I mean, I think it's like a big Frankenstein of all. You know, it's like maybe I just need to focus on on only one thing, and not try to grab everything. But but yeah, I have a lot of food for no, yeah, food for thought. I think it is how you say it in English. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
food for thought.
Great pun with your apple.
Yeah, that's what it said. I think that's
Okay.
right. I think your instinct's spot on in that regard. I mean, so oftentimes these things will go like really wide. There'll be a lot of stuff, and then you find one little thread that's like actually this tells the story. You know, and just kind of and also allowing yourself to kind of bounce back and forth between the thing that's trying to capture so much, and then finding the way to isolate it. It's like it came up in a conversation. I hadn't seen the movie in a while. Wim Wenders' Until the End of the World, and it and I when I saw it when I first saw it, it was like you could only get it on VHS tape. So I don't know how long it was, but they've got a maximum length, and then I had the Criterion edition, and it's like almost 4 hours. I'm just like, Jesus, dude, this is too much. Break it up into like three sittings. It's too much. But you hear him say about it, this is the only version that should exist. And that's I think that's what am I trying to say? Scott, go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking something you said before about the how do you know it's a cop? How do you know one person's a cop and the other, like that scene, right? And I thought uh I laughed at it at the moment where you're like he has a bag but with a dollar sign on it. But we know that's not what it really looks like. There is no bag. It's very common that it's like that, right? In film as a shorthand. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is like I think as a designer, it's hard to let it be just like that. You want to design all of this stuff like to a higher level of fidelity. And so when you described that, I thought, oh, that might be actually hard to do, to leave some things on, in this weird place because it's just there for story,
Yeah.
not because that you intend it to be.
Yeah, but that's also that's something that I'm trying to fix with my therapist because when you're always trying to make everything close, and it's like
Hmm.
maybe it's not so that's not so relevant to the ends of the story. Maybe it's just you just need to focus and make that one thing work, and the rest of it can be a fantasy. I don't know. But yeah, it's something that's hard. And I think that's how my brain is structured because of me and because of school and how projects were, I don't know. But yeah, but you're right, but at the same time, I think it's something that I'm fighting against.
Mercedes, and then we'll move along to the next side project.
And I think another tip I can give is like show it as it is like a regular product, because somehow it felt like an oddity, but the story it's better, or it connects better when it's like, oh, this is something that is a thing. It's not like a Kickstarter project. It's something IKEA is considering to start putting in their products. Because that gives us a little bit more hints of the world that this lives in than the specific detail of the lady and the trash outside. Or it's like, and even playing with that, because it made me think a little bit of like, something that for me is just as weird, but like so common, like the carbon bonds. Like you can stop contaminating by buying other people's like CO2. Something like that becomes like makes you think about how that future is, where this is a thing that everybody can do. And it could be an apple, it could be a pear, it could be a banana, I don't know, because that's what people do.
Thank you, Mercedes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know what I'll have the last word, but that made me think of when you go to furniture stores and they'll set dress the room. So here's the sofa, here's the ottoman, here's the coffee table, and they'll have a couple of books. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm starting to feel this kind of the vibe. And there'll be like a porcelain bowl with a bunch of fake apples in it. Suppose you had like it was just apples as furniture, and you had sofas in the bowl. I don't know. That's stupid. Um, cool. Thank you, Julia. That was
Well, thank you.
Jordan, do you want to go next? All right, you're up.
For sure. So sorry. I don't know how I can match that awesome project. So you know what I'm saying. So, but well, what's going on, everybody? This is my first time here. My name is Jordan. And the project I had to share is kind of like a project from it's a project from my MBA. I just graduated from I don't have a lot to show, but I can tell you about I can just tell you about it real quick though. But I'm wanting to develop okay kind of like I want to develop I'm wanting to develop a speculative design studio that does impact work for excuse me for small businesses in for where I live at for where I live at in San Francisco. um because a while back during my MFA I had posed a question to Kevin Bethune when he was talking about how we how when he was talking about like how strategic how design innovation can affect these seemingly large companies, and I'm kind of like I'm kind of like why not for the point out laundry that can innovate this thing. So actually what I'll do is I'm not gonna show my pitch. I'm just gonna just show like just what I created for my pitch. And I apologize beforehand. I do have a stutter. If I can actually find my window. Oh, here it is. So like this right here is just an example of a pitch that I did earlier that did earlier this year. So I just went through kind of like just the the whole overall pitchy lingo about like like what we're doing, like we're democratizing speculative futures, and trying to and really trying and not and really trying to make an impact on the longevity of small business through speculative design. Because and again, a lot of what a lot of what I want to do is innovation work through this practice because of like my first my first speculative design project was kind of weird. It was it was a microprocessor. It was a microprocessor that was developed by the world's first trillionaire, and he and it was based on like the for 40 acres in the 40 acres in the mule theory. So but that's kind of where this kind of birthed from. So like of course this problem solution, but this my kind of a deep kind of a run through my process, at least what I thought of anyway, cook him with in a matter of 5 seconds. Or if let me know if you want me to move on. If you want to read it.
If you want us to kind of see it as you go, maybe zoom in just a little bit, Jordan,
Sure.
if you
Sure.
can.
Actually, sure. Yeah. I'll see if I can. Well, I don't want to put it in presentation mode, but like I can definitely like see if I
Yeah,
can.
it's, I'm sure you can. Yeah, like
There we
that.
go.
That's perfect.
See if I can get in vision, get in view. Hold on a second.
That's
There we go.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole idea behind it is doing like constant co-creation workshops to not only use it as a tool of research, but also to help educate the public on finding signals, on doing horizon scanning, and doing seeing how, like, thinking about the future, helps them in their lives. And so and this is kind of like the basis of what I really want to do. And again, if is everybody okay? Can I move on, or are you also still reading?
Yes.
Cool, awesome. So hold on one second. So oh, there we go. So again, I'll zoom back out a little bit. So again, it's all about and at least in my eyes, it's all about trying to save small businesses, especially in San Francisco, where like it's almost epidemic of small businesses closing down, like each and every year. So that, and again, like I feel like through speculative design foresight, that we can at least make an attempt. At least I can make an attempt to, anyway, and while also making an impact, because again, I never just wanted to create a studio. I want to try to see how I can make the most impact with people, and bringing the active futuring to other people. So yeah, there's numbers, yada yada yada. I don't see that, matters. So but yeah, business model, yeah, I'm supposed to skip all that. But yeah, but here's actually my initial team that I came up that came up with. This with a bunch of this a whole bunch of folk that I work with over the years. And another thing about what I want to do is like, I wanted to bring together both artists and designers as a part of this, because I'm even though this is a business I want to form, like this is but like I really want this to be an imaginative practice, because and again, well, that's really the basis of all, doing any kind of future worth of use. Say, speaking design foresight, like I really want to see how we can like further expand further expand the act of just using imagination while like doing business. So I'm going to show y'all actually like a first kind of, so this is just outline of a workshop structure that I kind of thought of, and I guess some of these ideas from reading. It's the new design futures book that came out. I forget I forget I forget what's
I
called.
have it. I know what you're talking about. Designing
Yes,
futures, right?
yes. And I kind of like just want to
Mark
think
is
of like,
showing it. It's blurry, but he's got the book. There we go.
hey, see, you all, I'm poor, so I couldn't afford a hardback, but I got the online version. I got the online version though. But I really wanted to make this real active experience in showing people, like how to find signals, and like, and how futuring is kind of being active in their lives, especially since like stuff's happening around them every single day, that you know um like anything any single solitary thing can pick up. I got that from your book, Julian. So oh snap, sorry, I'm afflicted. But yeah, like, and just and really just and it really I really want to try to keep this model real very simple. Like it's not really like a full workshop, it's more of like a mini workshop, but it's there to try to hopefully teach people about finding signals and looking for trends and looking for, you know what I'm saying, and again how it will affect them, and then, you know, and this is just a like a brief concept of what could happen. Like I'm still kind of in the middle of changing everything, um, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Examples of, like, let's say I was going to come and be part of your program, and I live here in San Francisco, so maybe I will be. Do you have any examples of like work that you've done that would be like, oh, I'm going to teach you how to do this, or like an artifact that you made, or anything that like that you've done that would, you know, that I would learn how to do by being part of this program, just to sort of,
Definitely.
does that make sense?
Yeah. So actually, I'm glad I brought this up. So this one's a bit crude, but
Sometimes it's better.
Yeah. So this is actually a speculative art supply buying experience at art supplies that down the street from me. So I mean, I hope y'all I'll play the video. Hopefully I can hear it.
I don't think it's
I
gonna
call it.
come because I think Zoom mutes out smart Zoom mutes out background music.
Oh, dang. Okay. Well, I'll just explain this. So uh, this is an idea I have for an experience called a active inspiration space, and it's supposed to help customers in the year 2050, help them buy the right art supplies to help them start off with. So what they're doing right now is that the person in the middle is the customer, and they're moving about this space, and you know, and it's showing different forms of art on the walls currently, and there's like motion trackers that's kind of tracking like where their movements, the eyes are going to, and everything. And so, and then after that, it builds you a comprehensive plan about like how can you paint like this, and what art supplies you want to buy, and yeah. So that was the overall idea behind this project. It was like it was all about building a space where people can actively, you know, we actually moving around the space, you know, just it cannot aimless, but more so like seeing where their body movements and eyes are drawn to, and seeing like how and where, like where can and for especially for people who aren't artists but want to be in, want to get on, but don't know, but wouldn't know how to get into. Like, this is kind of like a future setting where like you can actively, without like, have a low stakes experience in buying art supplies. Yes.
Hey Jordan, I used to live in the Bay. Is I put in the chat a couple or three different, well, Lonnie's in the Bay, but the other two are not. People that might be, I don't know if you want to try and do what you're doing solo or find people to support you. That's one thing. And then are they still doing the event on Market Street where it's like, you know, people propose kind of different kinds of experiences as a way to like activate Market Street? There was a similar thing in Oakland. I'm blanking. It became more of like a music food thing, but it had started as an art thing. I'm blanking on the name of it. Are those things still going on? Because I think that would be an awesome venue for you to find a business along there. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
this idea that you're like, it could be a laundromat, it could be any right business
Right.
that could imagine its own future. That's awesome. And it's just like, well, just go find one. And and I'm sure they'd be happy to collaborate with you on imagining their future with some of their customers. So yeah, happy if we can, this group is pretty well connected, if we can help you with any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would definitely appreciate it. And honestly, I think I know I think it's called I think it's they call the vacant the vibrant, I think it was called.
Say it again. The Oakland one?
Vacant to vibrant.
Oh, maybe. That's like a new that sound, yeah, it could be. There's like pavement to parkway. There are many different things going on. But anyway, I'm thinking it would be, all you need to do is like time it, like find one of these events that's going on and find a business that either you're a patron there or whatever, and say, hey, let's imagine some futures together. I think that would be um, a cool project, a cool way to start it.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You
Yeah.
know, Jordan, I was thinking like small businesses, they're small enough that they could be understood as objects, right? There's the laundromat, right? There's the corner store that you can almost wrap your arms around it. And I was thinking that, I think it's hard for people to wrapping their heads around the future, like getting them to think in terms of, projections into the future. It's very abstract. And
Right.
and I think the kind of the intimacy of a laundromat, the baker I've gone to my entire life and so on. I think I was thinking that I think just asking people around the neighborhood how they perceive the artifact of the laundromat in their lives and their memories, the pictures in the yearbook, the snapshots, the corner cut, the people, the relevance of the object throughout the history of the place, would be maybe a pathway into setting a sort of landscape of thought that people could build upon, so that they would be building upon a shared history in order to talk about a shared future. Instead of kind of starting, and I may have misunderstood you as well, so I apologize if I have, but like instead of starting with kind of future thinking tools, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there because the idea of the small business is very much like an object to me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly, and that you make the point too, I have found it difficult to kind of like really really segue, because like what I showed you with the model I made, was more of a segue point. Because you're right, 'cause I really want to really build connection, and I want to use this idea as means of connection as well with people who patronize small businesses, but also again build these and who build this foundation.
Yeah, and I think you'll get some amazing stories. I mean, like, the first kiss will have happened for some people in the line, you know what I mean? Like your mom washing your clothes and how you remember her and now she's gone. Or, I'm just making this up, obviously, but like I think there's gonna be a lot of real human stories.
Exactly. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
To say, I'm here in San Francisco. We've got a really beautiful space that I can use anytime we want it's in Aquatic Park. And so like we want to do a meetup or something like that, like let's connect. I think it'd be fun.
Definitely, I would love that. Thank you. So yes, let's do that. Yes.
Send the invitation to anybody else on the call too. Like if it's not occupied, it's an event space. And if it's not occupied, I can use it whenever I want.
Nice.
Awesome.
Will there be an open
Awesome.
bar or any nothing?
IOB, but yes, an open bar.
Brando, go ahead.
Yeah,
Brando.
yeah, that's me.
I'm sorry.
Hey, it's really cool to see speculative futures pitched and particularly speculative futures pitched toward the idea of the small business, because so much of the sort of things that we construct or think about in a design fiction are either as a consumer of objects and seeing them in places, or as the large organizations that are tend to be sort of well-moneyed and things like that. So I really like that, and it reminds me of Julian's Corner Convenience, but from the perspective of the convenience store. So if you've seen that, the work that came out of there, like really cool, but it is primarily from the perspective of a person kind of uh, in the convenience store, sort of experiencing those objects. But the practices and processes that you have as a small business are a really interesting target, because there's the consumer experience of what you do in a laundromat, in a convenience store, in an art supply store, but there's a whole bunch of practices that you're beholden to by virtue of being a business existing with a bricks and mortar, a persistent relationship to a physical location in an environment, all those kinds of things that are really ripe for considering. And also it occupies a middle ground in terms of the agency, like the power that a small business has in comparison to a consumer, which is, different. They're less free in a lot of regards because they're stuck to, the making payroll and stuff, but they're also more free because they can actually pay for and add things and change their environments in certain ways. And so I think that's a really, really interesting thing to kind of strike a balance between. And I just maybe I'm not a very I mean, I know I'm not always a very imaginative person, but like really excited by what you find there. Is there anything in particular that you have discovered that you can kind of present as things that sort of um, yield themselves up in that through that lens for small business versus either massive organizations or individuals and consumers within these worlds? Because yeah, I love the idea. I haven't thought too much about it other than you can put different kinds of cameras in or something. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about why that's interesting and what you feel you can do with that in particular, other than the very, very valid social function of actually helping small businesses not die, which I appreciate. Thank you. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, well, most definitely, yeah. But yeah, and we can talk we can talk about more. We can talk more in depth later. But mostly it's really just it's the uniqueness of each one. Because and the now it could be the services that they offer, or it could be it could be a product that they may have made themselves, but nobody picked up. They just said no, bump it. We're gonna do it ourselves. Like, and because I remember going to there's this gift shop called open editions, and they have they have such a unique line of just of stuff they sell, and plus they help artists sell their own products, like that. And so like I really want, and I said, you see something like that, and you're like, and even going back to the Quan laundry, like they like people use these things. So it's like my whole idea is behind, like, hey, how can we make this how can we make make these business these objects Lil Lorax just said, how can we make these objects more and rather how can we ground them more in the community, and how can we and how can we make them sustain and build new stuff, you know what I mean? And especially in the context of what they do. And so, but yeah, but I definitely appreciate that heavily though. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Jordan, I got a couple thoughts. The I've done a bunch of workshops with like underrepresented communities and underserviced communities, and I'm seeing some similarities here with like struggling businesses. These are businesses that are having a hard time doing things, and in the futures world, there's a lot of expressions around the idea that like it's really hard to think about the future when you are preoccupied with concerns of the present, right? It's like hard to plant seeds when you're always patching holes. So that idea is also, and I always go back to like the know your audience concept. So one thing would be to, you can approach a small business that's struggling and tell them you've got ideas around like a projecting the future casting or during imagining into the future. And it seems like, yeah, this doesn't seem like it's going to be beneficial because I've got too many big issues dealing with today. Part of it is like, how do you create a space for them to like just let go of your worries today, let go of that one issue? How can you free that cognitive load of concern for just a few hours to allow their brains to open up to that? So I think in a case with a small business, it's like, how do you prep them? How do you get them in a place where they're feeling good? And then once you've done that, you can have a really, really productive and generative conversation, and then they can go back to being concerned about stuff. But now they're armed with a few like hopeful thoughts.
That's powerful, and I wholeheartedly agree because I guess that's really the challenge, because like I remember putting out a survey and so somebody literally quite said, I don't have time, I don't want to do this, don't have the funds, yada yada yada. I'm like, and my initial, I'm like, man, you just didn't have to answer the survey, but but yeah, like that's definitely kind of like why I'm glad I'm doing it, because like I want to I shouldn't say force, but like I want to I really want to I want to open that door for them for the small businesses really to really kind of really get back to imagining how they see themselves, how they see themselves growing, and really get them into a mode of like how can because again, like my team, we're not like a whole bunch of business experts. We're just artists and designers who want to get folk to imagine again. So and again and again that's why I love what you said, because again that's what I'm hoping for, is to give it's like don't get folk out that shell. So
Good stuff. Why
yeah,
don't we so Isabella, and then do you want to segue into your
Yeah, that's great. That's fine.
so maybe just before
Uh,
so that we can segue direct. I just want to have one remark, and then you
oh,
can
go ahead. Go ahead.
just trying to get the order. So I think so a couple things. One thing I think because you are a wonderful collective of artists and designers, it might be fun just because people like us like to do work, is just to find like a local business. I'm stuck on the laundromat because I think that's an incredible powerful space, because people got to go there, it's occupied, and there are all these interesting things that I've seen over my life, that people have done with laundromats, especially in like in a small town like Santa Cruz, where that's where I had to go to do my laundry. It's like that's
mm,
cafe, and then they do reading groups, and it
right.
just becomes like a social space. So, even just trying to find a laundromat that would be like, we say like, can we use your space to do an exhibit of some sort? And the exhibit's going to be, I don't know, the laundromat of the future. And that way it's not, you're not putting a burden on the proprietors who are probably working 80, 90-hour weeks anyway to do something more. You're just saying like, hey, we're going to make your space awesome, kind of thing. And that could be
Exactly.
that could be one way of doing it, or finding some way to, they've got energy and they want to be part of the community. I don't know what the vibe is in the laundromats these days. So that was one thought. The other thing is just a kind of um having been parts of groups of artists and designers. um Scott Patterson and I, we collaborated for quite some time, did a whole bunch of projects. It's I'm not trying to, I'm saying this out of a sense of um something to consider. It will be really hard if you're just a group of artists and designers. Like you're the visionaries, and visionaries need um they need the structure person. So, finding the way to find, someone who gets what you guys do and wants to help. And that might just be like, trying making connections with the laundromat. But that is always that kind of work, the money work and the organizational work is always really, really hard for the creative consciousness. and recognizing that and not trying to figure out how to be a money person, but rather finding someone who wants to help and be part of the collective, who is more inclined. You get a whole bunch of visionaries in a room, there's gonna be trouble. It's gonna be really, really hard to be, kind of, I guess what I would say, commercial, like if you want to turn a buck. So thinking about that, keeping that in mind is really important, because every great band had a manager, and the manager was like, I'm not gonna play an instrument. I'm gonna help you guys find the gig. So that's what.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Like, yeah, because
But
That's a great segue to my comments because as you'll see, Jordan, I am actually doing something similar with another industry where I want to bring design features and futures thinking to museums. So I'm thinking about that as like a specific sector or like, industry. So I really resonate with what you're talking about. One thing that comes to mind in terms of like having a good manager or agent, like Juliana is mentioning, is like Main Street associations or like, local civic groups that are designed around like fostering, business success in different like commercial corridors and stuff. Um,
people and stuff. Business improvement district kind of
that's what thank you. I like couldn't think of the word. Thank you. Yes, exactly. And that might connect you to more than just the laundromat, even though everyone seems quite in love with that concept. You could even use like Andrew's connections to like do a pilot and then leverage that maybe for like deeper relationships with, specific area or neighborhood that maybe you're deeply invested in for any number of reasons. But it's really inspiring idea, and it makes me think about not to always refer back to Stuart Candy because I know he comes up in almost every futures conversation, but yet again, Stuart shows up his experiential futures project kind of early on at the University of Manoa, where they kind of like took over select businesses in a neighborhood and actually kind of changed the business for a day. So also thinking about, is there something that can be like more tangible and experiential as opposed to just workshoppy and conceptual and abstract? Might be also worth considering depending on how your conversations go, because then you can see customers' responses in real time, which can also like be really, 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 really helpful. So yeah,
definitely,
that's my
definitely.
thoughts.
I appreciate everybody. But thank you for that. Yeah, yeah, and again, like I'm not now. I'm really because everybody's bringing the launchmat. I'll promise you all, I'll work with launchmat. I'll promise you, I'll do that. Promise you, I'll do that. But
Look, this might be just be a really big groupthink moment. Like, I don't know if you should take this as like the ultimate end all be all, but it is vibing, that's for sure.
Oh, I'll promise you, I absorb everything. I love it all. But I actually we have a couple ideas of actually working with not only that, but also working with our supply store again. I have a gallery friend that I'm going to try. I want to work with, and there's another friend of mine who's starting a small uh letterpress studio. And so and those are those are things that I really would like to appreciate Isabella, but like, but I'm definitely wanting to really dive deep into those. And I love the idea of like the of changing the business for a day, especially as in the means of divisioning. I've honestly and really having a more exhibitive experience when it comes to developing, you know, developing this thing. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody on the family for all the feedback. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and share mine. So I signed up like last night, so kind of last minute. And I'm going to talk about some things that I've been doing around futures thinking and doing for museums. I have a little side project I've been nursing for a long time. I think, preemptive forgiveness from Julian for also using the word lab, but it's a good one for actively making. So my side project is called Lab for Radical Museum Futures. And I want to share some design fictions I've made, some ways that I've used the design fiction work kit to do that, and some design fictions that I want to do in the future, and talk about like why I think those are important for museums. I will say that even though museums are like quite well established as institutions and um, often present themselves and think of themselves as existing forever, they're actually really struggling right now. Obviously, funding cuts are a major impact, but also kind of the way that we interact with museums has been changing over time. I think for a multitude of reasons. One of which is based on like how we like to spend our leisure time. We have a lot more options that exist in the real world beyond just going to a museum in the afternoon, and also museums can be contentious spaces. They're not necessarily always telling stories in a way that speaks to a lot of people, and so I think people are increasingly able to discern whether or not it's a space that's really for them, and don't feel the need to bow down to the assumed authority that they have had in more recent generations. So museums are going through a little bit of a, and have been actually like within the industry, a crisis of conscience and a crisis of like social significance. Like, why do we exist? Who do we exist for? What should we be doing? How should we operate? And that's kind of where I think, as Jordan mentioned, being able to like flex imagination as a muscle is really, really, really meaningful to people who love museums and work within them, or even who care about museums continuing to be around. Okay, so I've been using design fiction for some small projects, and this is one. So this was a project that I made for like a prominent museum blogger who honestly was having his own individual crisis. And I said, you know what, I'm going to make some design fictions just for you based on the values that you really want to see in the museum field. And the key word there is values. So something that I've done when I've worked with the design fiction work kit is actually add values in part because museums are so mission-based, whether or not they actually realize those missions always in the way that they operate. It is really core, as it is for many nonprofits. And so by adding values in, to me, it's a really big part of like the world building context that's needed for, making design fiction. So what is this? Okay, you can pretty much read it, but I'm also gonna just kind of describe it out loud. So it's a version of the New York Times Magazine cover story that is from June 29, 2054. And it basically, in the article, discusses museum employees engaging in collective dreaming through doing dream circles together where they take naps that are influenced by guided visualizations. And when they wake up, They talk about any problem that they were trying to solve. And it's based on this new emerging practice called convergence that melds REM states. Yeah, so this is kind of a fun idea for kind of building collaborative energy in museum organizations. The next one is actually done from the perspective of a design firm that would be working for museums. And this is a job posting. So another thing that I've done when I've worked in with the work kit is sometimes I have to add new archetypes. So like, you know, because I'm working in a specific industry, there's more archetypes that might speak directly to that industry. This is not necessarily the most specific of archetypes. A job posting, any business would have a job posting, but other archetypes that I've considered, haven't quite like put out into the world yet, are things like accession reports, which is when you put an object into a museum collection. Let's see, what else? Board meeting notes, big thing for nonprofits. I have done tickets, so like museum tickets, but I know that's part of the kit already. But you get the idea, like thinking about archetypes that basically don't just reflect on how museums might be responding to, but actual to a world. Like, you know, you might have an archetype that's actually describing what's happening within a museum, but are literally what they might be working with, like literally something they might be making. So this job posting basically is a draft of, you know, a new type of role that is a combination of working with AI versus, you know, just working with humans. And so this company is building into its practice the ability to sell creative services with AI assistance or not. And so one thing that it also has in it is the idea of it being reviewed by staff who have a certain level of experience, not by hierarchy. So that's also kind of a distinction that's present in this design fiction. So those are some of the examples of things that I have done and ways that I've already amended the design fiction work kit. And now I'm going to get into the things that I haven't done. So they're on my to-do list. So if some people might be familiar with this already, but this document, the image that's here is from Superflux. It's from a few years ago when they introduced kind of like their more than human kind of manifesto. And I really, really appreciate the way that they kind of have translated kind of like these common, you know, concepts that we hear a lot in contemporary life into more than human constructs. And so I think what I would like to do next with design fiction is figure out how to, I think it would be in the qualities, but add in more than human qualities in addition to the ones that are already there. And so I'm particularly interested in like interdependence over independence. So it's like, you know, what would it look like if you're like lifting up others as opposed to just like how you're doing things alone? You know, examples of practice within museums where you focus on contingency over like your certainty. And nurturing over growth. Obviously, growth can be like a very it can be very kind of like you know, progressive concept, but I think in this context it really means like growth, you know, no matter what. It's like the late capitalistic term of growth, in spite of the fact that the planet is dying. And then caring over fixing. So, you know, the idea of you know, representing museum operations that are not about just fixing challenges, but about like caring for the conditions in which they may exist. Okay, so the other thing that I want to incorporate into the design fiction work kit and some design fictions is related to time. This is something that I don't really feel is in the work kit right now. And, you know, museums have a very particular relationship to time. Like half the time that you go, that you go into museums, galleries, whether it's an art museum, which is represented in the, you know, kind of diagram on the left, where you can see like all the different, you know, hundreds of years time frames, and then the period identifications, and also in the floor plan, that's from the Princeton Art Museum, are, you know, based on like these large chunks of time that are art periods, or then you even have the kind of natural science time periods as well. But there's so many other ways that we can look at time and experience time. And so, you know, one of the things that I'm really interested in is like adding dimensions of time that's beyond kind of atomic time of like hours, minutes, years, and working with like what I'm calling anatomic time. So it's like life stages. So like you have this, you know, GIF of these plants growing. So thinking about growth patterns, bodily stages, etc. Some other more expanded time scales that would be interesting to play with are like ethnological time. So it's like how a culture defines time. You can see that from like the many ways that different languages have soon described. And soon can mean a lot of different things. It can mean, well, if you put it in atomic time, it can mean 5 minutes, or it can mean maybe 2 hours. We don't know. So ethnological time connects to those cultural definitions. Archaeological time is a little bit more like, you know, historical time, but it can also be even more expansive than that. It can go into like prehistory, and then obviously geological epochs are as like huge swaths of time getting up to like the Anthropocene where we are now. And then you've got this amazing depiction of deep time, which is getting into like geological time, you know, like we're talking like millions and billions of years. So what would it mean as a museum if you were actually thinking on these much larger time scales, and how would that affect the way that you interpret your objects, the stories that you tell, the way that you tell your stories, the way you operate as an organization? Because museums often, again, like I mentioned, assume that they will be permanent. But what does permanence mean when you're talking about millions of years? It doesn't mean the same thing anymore. So then the other thing that I'm interested in is looking at structure. Again, I don't think this is really represented in the design fiction work kit, but museums tend to be very structured in multiple ways. So we've got architectural structures, which is demonstrated by these upper right hand images. So I used to work at this museum all the way at the upper right. So this is the National Museum of American History, and it's a super modern building that completely reflects the classical architecture that's below it. So it's a really weird building. And then you look at the colonnades of like other adjacent museums that are actually on the National Mall, and it looks identical, right? So even though they're contemporary, they still can't help reflecting like the image of what we think a museum needs to look like. And that is not just in the building and the way we think of a museum as a building specifically, but it's also in like the way that we classify objects. So we use like these really rigid, you know, scientific taxonomies. And then also you can see in the lower left-hand corner with the ruby slippers conservation video, the way that we try to prevent objects that literally want to degrade, desperately want to fall back into the earth, because that is what things do on our planet, and we like work so hard to preserve them. So the story of the ruby slippers here is that they literally had to they had a Kickstarter campaign in which to raise money to take off every single sequin from the ruby slippers and replace the threads that went around every single sequin, so they could make sure that it would last, you know, forever. But they'll have to do it again because the threads are going to want to fall apart because they are material things. But we work so hard to like control these objects and to like make sure that they stay and that we determine what happens to them. Whereas I think that there's an opportunity to maybe probe and design fiction with museums, the ideas of like emergence. So I think of where I'm from, which is New Orleans, and how it's actually a city that is basically unmanageable, right? Like it is the combination of like the geography and the cultural traditions that exist there. It is just unruly and a beautiful mess. That has actually some sense of like self-organization and coherence. It's not always linear, but it continues to live on. And so I think of it as like a really great example of almost like a city that's like an emergent museum. You will always see some reflection of the past, and the present comes alive to you in like unexpected ways. And the last thing that I really, oh my God, we have 3 minutes left. I have to shut up. Because I'm not going to hear from y'all at all. Oh my God, that's such a bummer.
Yeah,
Anyways,
try to keep them like 10-minute, short 10-minute presentation. So
oh
maybe
my God, I'm so sorry. This is
yeah.
the problem with doing things the night before, right? Where you're like, it's fine. I'll just throw something together and then it's way too long. So basically for me, I was just really looking for feedback around like, when you're focusing on a specific sector or industry, like, what's your advice? And then as non-museum people, like, what about this interests you? Yeah, oh my goodness, I wish you would have interrupted me sooner and told me to shut up. I would
No,
love to
you
hear
have
from,
10 minutes to speak and then the conversations after. So
okay, cool.
Well, so this is really exciting. I was talking to one of the people who's responsible for the Metropolitan Museum earlier this year because I make this thing called the HTML model element. It's being able to put 3D models into a browser so that you can see it, and when you're in virtual reality like I am, you can see it as a full object. Um, but it was really interesting to hear about the sort of the pressures and the requirements of museums and what kinds of capabilities they have and how um, under underestimated some of the faculties are in terms of the size of collections and the ability to kind of create threads and commentaries along them. And, the physical real estate being such a limited um, a limited resource in comparison to the things that exist actually in people's catalogs and stuff. Um, but since Dre's not here, I would channel him and say, what who's your audience and what do they know about what appeals to them? So if you're trying to tell a lay audience about what could happen with speculative futures about designs, that's one thing. But if you're trying to talk to the people who are invested in and aware of the sort of the inside baseball of the way that museums work, um, then it's probably a valuable thing to think about how those forms are presented and what's resonant for them. Um, and what are the particular sort of soft spots or spots of anxiety. So the point about struggling to get funding and the sort of relationship that presents in terms of being able to preserve their overall missions is probably a pretty important one. But yeah, I'm really excited by this. I'm going to start talking to these glam sector people myself about what we can do, and so it's really interesting to think about some of the other sort of um, ways of structuring and presenting what it is that a gallery does for my own nefarious purposes. Thank you.
I think the problem museums have is that we've kind of moved away from caring about sharing a history. So like the idea that museums contain anything that's relevant to the visitor is a distant concept. These are bigoted societies that created dominance through unfair means that dominated the world and stole art. I mean, there's so much negativity in history about identity, and so I think people are moving away from that. So I don't think museums have that anymore as a place for shared cultural vision or something like that. But they do have a lot of like old art that they keep in their basements that they don't show. And I think they should start like having a lottery or in some way allowing people to buy this stuff and kind of just make a lot of money by selling their collections. And I think you could learn a lot about what people actually care about that way. Because if you have something that's worth millions of dollars and you charge a $10 lottery ticket, you'd be a fool not to buy that $10 lottery ticket, right? So they could make billions and billions of dollars selling stuff that they'll probably people will never see. And so I'd want to be kind of, Marinetti, kind of like destroy history kind of on this and, make history by kind of selling off the old stuff and through that discovering what people are really interested in. So it's not really an idea. It's probably, it can't really happen, but I think museums are just broken. They trade on history and shared belief, and there is no such thing, like not in any kind of comprehensive way. So I think that's what we got to move towards in the future is like the immediacy of people's experience and their lack of linkage to anything we imagine as a historical precedent. But that's I guess I'm not really saying much. I just had this thought when I heard you speak. So I think we got to break stuff is essentially what I'm saying.
Um, to jump off that point about kind of the commercialization. I'm in advertising, so this is kind of the lens I think through. Is thinking about how some of these museums have these great brands like the Metropolitan Museum of Art or the Louvre, and how about taking these brands and bringing them into other spaces? And it's a bit of a lateral move, but there are these apartment buildings in Miami, I believe, that are based on car company. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. I have to research what car that is. Um, but maybe bringing into other spaces, maybe bringing into living spaces or common spaces might be an interesting way to you're talking about duration and time, so maybe bringing it into a spatial element as well.
Cool. Thanks, y'all. Sorry about going over.
Given. I do like the idea of like we've talked about it for a long time. I think you and I have talked about it directly about the like expansion packs for the
Oh,
ideation.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have to say it mostly because Brian kind of sparked it. Museums and laundromats, micro museums.
Yeah, there's something called the Micro Museum actually. It's like this it was like this freestanding thing that existed in New York City. And then they turned it into these little tiny gift shop size things that you could buy, and they were like, little items that were, shells or some type of collection. So it was really about like the curation of the thing. What's up, Seb?
To unmute myself. Um, I added you on LinkedIn because I want to follow up on this whole like museum thing because it is quite interesting to me personally. As a person from Mexico, like it is really cool to go to museums and see artifacts from my culture, but they are also like outside of my culture and they are not accessible to my culture, right? So
Right.
taking like a speculative approach, like how can we repatriate these artifacts and make them accessible to the people that should, be able to know about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point during my thesis, I wanted to make these like pop-up museums from the future that would sort of like be more graffiti than futures work and just have like a little door to something, right? Where you could kind of just see an image or a painted or it didn't really develop into anything, right? It was COVID 2020. I didn't have any money to like make the things. So yeah, that was kind of an idea. But the idea was to just make people bump into the future, right? You're walking down the street, you see a little corner, there's something, you look and you're like, whoa, what is that? What is this like free Wi-Fi that like makes poetry out of my data? You know, stuff like that. Yeah.
There's still time.
Yeah, there is still time.
Actually, lots of time according to different time scales.
I experience time differently than my partner, for example. And I heard about polychronic time or something like that. I don't really remember, but people experience time linearly and they want to fill it. And if you make an appointment at 4, right, like you have to show up at 4. Otherwise, if you show up at 4:05, it's wasted time. But the way that I see time is just like a bucket to be filled by doing the thing that I need to do. So if I didn't do this other thing, I jump to the other thing, and then I'm late all the time, and it pisses people off. But I'm just jumping around doing a bunch of different things, right? Like filling my time and not meeting deadlines. Kind of.
Interesting. I'm gonna look up polychronic time.
It's apparently very Mexican. So
kind
of explains why we're late all the time.
Got it.
Okay, so we're at time. Any last kind of reflections, remarks? What's working, what isn't structurally? Is this going okay?
I will add a little remark, Julian. I have a really hard time hearing your voice. Like the volume of your voice compared to everyone else's is very different.
Yeah, it's super low, right? The volume? Yeah.
Oh, she told me earlier because I can turn a knob. Sorry about that.
Okay, I think that works.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Structurally, I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that you can speak for 10 minutes. And then questions come after. So you got 10 minutes to speak. Yeah.
That's the structure. 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But Isabella, it's totally fine. I mean, don't don't burden yourself with that all weekend. Stomping your foot. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. It's all good. All right. That's it from me. Thank you everyone for showing up. Appreciate you.
Thanks all. Thanks for presenting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting this.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.